What's up? I'm Troubleshoot. In this quick guide, I'll be showing you how to optimize Modern Warfare 3 Season 3 that's just released for the best competitive edge and performance. I'll be jumping straight into the game here, so if you'd like to find out how to optimize your system for much better performance, latency, and more, check the description down below for guides on how to do that. First of all, hit the cogwheel or F3, then graphics, and we'll start here. Display mode should definitely be set to full screen exclusive, but borderless on DirectX 12 has similar comparable performance. So either option here is good enough. If you do choose full screen borderless, your refresh rate and resolution will be locked to that of your display settings in Windows. This is usually fine, as your native resolution should be set here and the refresh rate should match your monitor. If you're on a laptop or a PC with multiple GPUs, make sure the correct one is selected here. The rest of these are your preference. The one thing I would recommend doing is restarting the shaders over here to clear the shader cache, although I'd only do that after we change all of our settings. NVIDIA Reflex low latency should be turned on if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, or on plus boost if you have a lower powered CPU. If you find that you're clicking out when you're playing borderless or even full screen, then enable this option here and you'll be locked to the window. These options here really don't matter, but I'd recommend changing eco mode to custom, turning off VSync, choosing frame rate limits you're comfortable with, and that's pretty much it. At the very bottom, HDR is something you can enable. It won't really affect your performance, but of course it's only visible with an HDR display. Heading across to the quality tab, after applying, what I'd recommend you start with is dropping your preset all the way down to minimum. Obviously, having all of your settings drop down to the minimum gives you a ton more FPS and performance, which is incredibly important to have for that competitive edge. The rest of the options should look something like this, with variable rate shading turned on. Scrolling down to details and textures, everything here should be set to the minimum, on-demand texture streaming off, and local texture streaming quality to low as well. Then, if you have tons of extra VRAM lying around and you'd like to give the game a huge boost in quality, change the texture resolution from very low up to high. This will use dramatically more VRAM, but the performance impact will be practically unnoticeable on higher powered graphics cards. Obviously, if you don't have VRAM to spare, you won't be cranking this option up. Anisotropic filtering is also a very cheap effect and just further improves how textures look, even though it's very unnoticeable in these comparison shots. Here, I'd recommend leaving it on high, once again if you have extra system power lying over. This is a very cheap effect though. Then, continuing to scroll down, local texture streaming quality low, we've already done that. Shadow and lighting, everything down here as low as possible. And finally, environment, the same goes here. It's just where the grid volumes should be set to probably low by default, drop this to off. Our game should be absolutely maximized FPS wise, and we should get a huge improvement in performance from these options. If you would like to use upscaling and sharpening, then I'd recommend using AMD Finery FX CAS, as it just slightly enhances how the game looks, which is often pretty important, as we're going to be lowering pretty much all of the options here down to the minimum for the max performance. On the View tab, after applying, pretty much everything here is your preference. While Field of View technically affects FPS, I'd recommend leaving this all the way up. Then, looking further down, Motion Blur, I'd recommend turning off for the world, which greatly improves your vision, especially when you're flickshotting. Camera movement should obviously be set as low as possible for as little distraction, and of course it can help with motion sickness if you lower this as well. Film grain should be set to a very low number here, if not off completely. And then inverted flashbang can help improve visibility right after being flashed, but it's mainly just a personal preference. I'd recommend leaving it on. Then we'll go ahead and click across to the audio tab, where we can get an even bigger competitive edge here by changing your audio mix from whatever option here to PC speaker. This makes explosions quieter and footsteps much louder. This is technically your preference, but for the most supreme competitive edge, have it set to the most compressed option here, PC speaker. Then scrolling all the way down, I'd recommend turning on reduce tinnitus sound. Alright, now that we've optimized all of our graphics settings, we'll head back to the graphics tab here and we'll restart shaders preloading. This will clear our shader cache and regenerate everything, which is especially important after a big update. Now that we're done with the in-game optimization, we'll quickly quit out here and mess around with one file in particular. Open up a file browser, navigate across to your documents, Call of Duty, players, then you'll want to open options for COD 23 with any text editor such as Notepad. In here, you'll be looking for renderer worker count. This by default will be set to your total number of cores in your system. In order to find out how many cores you have, open up your task manager with Ctrl-Shift and Escape, head across to the Performance tab, CPU, and in here at the very bottom, you'll see cores over here. I've got a huge amount, mostly because I've got efficiency cores, which are down here, and performance cores up here. If you have an older CPU without efficiency cores, then this is going to be a lot easier for you. You can just look at the core count here. For you, the core count could probably be something like 8. If it is 8, in your renderer worker count, set it from 16 or whatever it is to the number of cores minus 1. So if you have 8 cores, set it to 7. If you have 4 cores, set it to 3, etc. For me, on a system with efficiency cores, we're not going to get the game to use any of these for better performance. We'll only be using the performance cores up here. I know that my 13900K, if I Google it, says it has 24 cores. There are 8 performance cores, so I'll set it to 8. While you may think I want to minus 1 from it, essentially what we're really doing here is telling the game to use all of our cores except for one, which is left over for background things like Spotify, Discord, etc. That way we can maximize performance by giving the game pretty much everything. This should also help minimize stuttering, because when other things use your processor, it could cause the game to stutter a bit, etc. Anyways, as I have tons of efficiency cores, programs will likely use these in the background, so I can give it pretty much all of the power cores in my CPU. On certain CPUs, you may actually benefit from using efficiency cores too, but those are mostly edge cases. Most of the time, it'll be cores minus 1, or the amount of cores if you have a ton of efficiency cores lying around. Alright, I'll save the file, and that's it. That's really all we need to do. There's one final tip if you haven't already, and that's skipping the intro. For this, you'll need to start the game once more, head across to your settings once more, interface, scroll all the way down, and turn on skip introduction movie. That's it. You've now successfully optimized Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 Season 3 for the best possible performance. Shaders are still currently processing in the top right, and if for some reason your main menu looks horrible, or the lobby screens here rather, head into your settings, graphics, quality, and make sure that your render resolution is set to 100%, and on top of this, the rest of the options are set the way that they were in our optimization. For some reason they reset for me, but simply changing them back got everything back to where they need to be, raising my performance greatly. Another thing is down by display, followed by sustainability, the menu actually renders at a lower resolution by default, being set to optimal. If it annoys you, you can set it back to maximal. And in my case, with everything maxed out, I went from a solid, let's say, 80-ish frames, all the way up to probably 120, but we'll see now. Alright, so now that we're in game, you can see my frames in the top left are sitting at 180, which is huge. That's a big improvement. Everything is super buttery smooth, and it'll be very easy to hit quick shots, etc. So that's it. That's really all you need to do. Hopefully this video helped you. Thank you for watching. My name's been Troubleshoot, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.